After completing the general practice residency in 2005, Dr. Ankar Gupta started a practice from scratch, armed with what he considered adequate dental knowledge, hand skills, and a personable demeanor. He watched as his practice floundered, finances became unpredictable, and his lower back and spirit towards his profession became worrisome. Rather than continue the trend, he made a guinea pig out of his office, family, and self, attempting any and all personal and professional experiments in self improvement. More than a decade later, Dr. Gupta enjoys excellent new patient numbers and case acceptance, a solution-oriented dental team, and most importantly, a meaningful and positive identity. He shares practical, implementable step-by-step strategies with audiences of dental professionals across the country. Attendees learn how to avoid the failures, achieve the successes, and be better. Welcome, Dr. Gupta.
Thank you very much, Shauna. I am happy to be here with all of you. Now, I'm in Ohio and you all are in Michigan, but we just found out this morning that apparently our governor is allowing dental offices to reopen as early as May 1st, which is something that I hadn't expected. For our office, we're definitely not. We don't have the PPE to do that. But I know some of you are actually going to be reopening your offices and getting back to work sooner than later. Now, I want to start by telling you all that we have an opportunity here. When on March 16th, or was it? Yeah, it was March 16th. We made the decision to close our office. It was a little early, but we noticed that the schools were closed, and we decided that if the schools were going to be closed, then maybe we shouldn't be shooting aerosols through people through the air in our office. And so we made the decision to close our office. And immediately after closing, we told our team, we said, okay, everyone, let's have a team meeting on Zoom and let's talk about stuff. And this was probably one of the worst team meetings that we had ever done. And let me tell you why. We closed our office on March 16th. And then the first 15 minutes, we're just talking about like money stuff and all the uncertainty in terms of money, unemployment and SBA loans and government aid and all that kind of stuff, okay? And then we talked about what a huge daunting task it would be to call all of the patients that we still have scheduled and canceling all that patients and not having the opportunity to reschedule them because we don't know when we're going to reopen. And then we talked about what are we going to do about these people whose crowns came off or who broke a tooth and they're in pain. What are we going to do for these people? And then I said, okay, but you know, for the most part, you're going to have more time. So use this time to tidy up and organize and use this time to learn new skills like new online CE. And at the time I was thinking, boy, I'm a smart dude. I'm giving them all sorts of great advice. And then I emphasized how all of us are going to be super busy when the office reopens. Like, okay, we're all closed. We cancel 1 billion patients. Then we're going to reopen and we have to schedule 1 billion patients. And it's going to be super duper busy. And that's what we thought we would engage our team with at this team meeting. But the way it ended is we all just kind of felt sorry for ourselves. All of us were like, we don't know what's going to happen with our practice, and we don't know what's going to happen with money, and we don't know when we're going to reopen. And overall, it was just kind of a crappy meeting, and it wasn't productive. And if I could go back in time, I would change everything about it. And the reason that I put together this webinar is to talk to you about how to be most productive in the little bit of time you have between now and when your office truly reopens, okay? Let's start with that one piece of advice that I gave. Use this time to tidy up and organize. I thought that was great advice. Every one of you, you have your dental offices, and your dental offices are a little messy somewhere, right? You have just like some crap laying around or some closet or some cupboard that's full of like burr blocks that you don't use and stuff. And it's going to be a great opportunity to tidy up and organize. So I went to the office that same week and I decided to clean up my desk. Now, this isn't a picture of my desk. This is a desk that I got off of Google, but my desk looks worse. I live about 5 miles from practice. Okay, so I'm pretty close. I live and practice pretty close. And a couple summers ago, I decided that during the summer, I would ride my bike to work. But the problem with riding my bike to work was that when I got to work, my undershirt, my bignon, was like wet. It was wet and sweaty. And so I just felt weird, like putting on a nice button-up shirt over my sweaty undershirt. So I bought a pack of Hanes undershirts from Walmart, and I kept them in my drawer, in my desk. And then what would happen was I would ride my bike to work, take off the wet shirt, put on the dry shirt, and then put on my button-up shirt on top. Well, I had never removed the wet shirts. Like there was like 7 now dry, but crumpled up, crinkly, disgusting undershirts in my drawer of my desk. And I only observed that like a couple weeks ago when I cleaned out my desk. And I ran over to my wife and I was like, dude, Nisha, you won't believe how gross I am. My undershirts, my sweaty undershirts were still on my desk. And we're like, oh man, you're gross. This is so great. We're gonna clean the desk. And so I cleaned my desk and I threw away unneeded papers and I got rid of those undershirts and I stepped back and I put I crossed my arms over my chest and I said, I'm a productive guy. But I wasn't productive. And the reason I wasn't productive is because for so many years, I had that messy desk. I had those crumpled up undershirts in my drawer, and they weren't impeding anything about my day-to-day operations. My life was moving on perfectly normal with and without those crumpled up undershirts. And it got me thinking of a book that I read not too long ago. It's by Chuck Blakeman. And in one of his chapters, there's a line that I'll never forget. And that line is this the highest and best use of my time? And even though cleaning my desk made me feel kind of good for a couple minutes, it wasn't the highest and best use of my time. There were more urgent, more important things that should have been done that I wasn't doing. And sometimes when we have a little bit more free time, we rush to do that low-hanging fruit. We rush to do that thing that seems like an obvious way to fill your time, but it's often not the most important. So remember this quote. Anytime you're doing something, ask yourself, is this the highest and best use of my time? The other thing that I talked about at this staff meeting was let's learn new skills by doing online CE. Now, there's a lot of you who are on this webinar right now. There's like 350 of you. And I know if you're anything like me, you have spent the last 6 weeks getting like 5,000 CEs. I know you have. I mean, you're just like, oh man, well, the office is closed. I'm not doing work. I'm gonna get my 5 million CEs. Now for me, all of my CEs, or the majority of my CEs, have been about dental, sleep, and airway management. Okay? So here's the problem with me. And I know it's a problem with most of you too, because I visit enough dental offices. I do my little consulting thing. I know this is what most dentists do. We learn a new skill. We fly to Chicago and we spend Thursday, Friday, and Saturday learning a new skill, whether it's about sleep, airway, and breathing, whether it's about dental implants and bone grafting, if it's about IV sedation, whatever it is. And we sit there and we're like, you know, if they can, I think I can do that. I think I can do it in my office. And then I start imagining how it's going to make my office so awesome. Like, man, you know, from now on, if every time I pull a tooth, I do a socket preservation and I do some PRF and I do a really nice graft and then the patient's going to get an implant, man, that's going to make my office so nice. It's going to be amazing, right? And so I start imagining this land of having my perfect practice, just like those dental CE speakers. And then when I show up to work on Monday at the morning huddle, I dominate the morning huddle with my new knowledge. So the hygienist is about to talk about her schedule. I'm like, no, you, shut up. I want to talk about my CE course. Oh, dental assistant, you have something to say? No, not right now. Let me talk about my CE course. Let me talk about my awesome CE course. From now on, we're going to start bone grafting. And every time a patient needs a tooth pulled, bone graft, socket preservation. And I bought this centrifuge and let's do PRF. And so somebody needs to get blood from the person's vein. And that's what I do. That's who I am. So during this COVID-19 quarantine period, I've learned a lot about sleep, airway, and breathing. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have gotten very excited about breathing, sleep, and airway. So imagine when we go back to work with our new skill, us dentists, we go back to work with our new skill, and we have a schedule that looks like this, a busy schedule. But now we're going to talk to our patients about sleep, airway, and breathing. So patient, tell me, has anybody ever told you that you snore? Has anybody ever told you that you stop breathing when you sleep? Tell me a little bit about your daytime drowsiness. Tell me a little bit about your overall sleep quality. And now our stinking hygienist is sitting there and she's like, dude, Gupta, I'm already 5 minutes late. I don't want you sitting in my room talking for the next 15 minutes about your sleep CE. And then if a patient's like, you know what, Gupta, I think I might have sleep apnea. I think I should get a test. And I go, oh, well, that's great because I bought a test. Let me give you a home sleep test. And I squeeze it in right there. And then the patient from the night before brings back their home sleep test, and we want to talk to them about the results. So we'll talk to them about the results about right there in that little sliver. And then one patient goes, you know what, Gupta, I want you to treat me now, treat my issues. And I'm like, yes, I get to treat this issue. And I'm going to go ahead and take your impressions and do your records right there. Now look at that schedule. Now, I don't know how many of you are dentists and how many of you are team members, but those of you who are team members, I mean, I can just imagine your sphincters right now, just like tightening up, because this is not the office you want to go back to. When I look at that schedule, I think of this pirates. There's my dental assistant right there, and then there's my hygienist, and cassettes are stacking up, but nobody's sterilizing because Dr. Gupta is doing a consult. Oh no, and then this guy's been waiting for 15 minutes to be seated. This is what happens when we learn a new skill. And I don't want you to go back to your dental office and have this be your experience. It's going to be busy. There's going to be changes. You're going to be doing a completely different protocol in terms of PPE and patient safety. It shouldn't be where you go back to your office and it's complete chaos. What I realized was, instead of just tidying up simple stuff and learning new skills that we were going to bring back to our post-COVID office, my attitude needed to change. And so this is what we decided to do. I want you to, actually, let's see if I can read the Q&As. Does anybody want to guess what this is? What this is a picture of? Those of you who are historians, anybody want to guess what this is a picture of? Type it in the Q&A. Yeah, Luann, your guess, Jennifer, these are the guesses that most people have. Most people guess that this is San Francisco after an earthquake. This is actually incorrect, though. This is a picture of London after World War II. And for those of you who don't know the history, after Hitler and the Nazis took over Belgium, Netherlands, France, Poland, Denmark, Austria, all of these countries, they had their sights set on Britain. And so their Air Force, the German Nazi Air Force, which was called the Luftwaffe, they just pounded the crap out of London. I mean, just dropping bombs and bombs and bombs and bombs over London. And pictures of London immediately after World War II looked like this. Just the whole city was turned to rubble. And it was 10 years later, so not that long, in the late 50s, this picture of London was taken. A totally rebuilt city. Now, I enjoy history a lot, and so I read a lot about what the process was for London when they rebuilt after World War II. And what a lot of business entrepreneurs talked about was, they said, one of the wonderful things about my city, about my business getting bombed to the ground, is that when we rebuilt, we also rebuilt without the inefficiencies. We rebuilt without the potential for conflict. We took all of the operations that were ruining our business before, and we were able to eliminate them. We became a reborn business. And I think to myself, all of us, with our offices having been closed for a month and a half, we have an opportunity to have a reborn business. It's an opportunity to identify all of the things that were inefficient, that were the impetus for conflict and frustration and annoyance in our office. And we get to rebuild our office without those things. But what's important is we learn what those things actually were. So, what are the things in your office? I want you to think about this, that are creating conflict between team members, frustration and annoyance, a lack of efficiency, a lack of fun, a feeling of grossness, or obstacles to the realization of your long-term vision. I want you to look at this photo. Now, this is a sectional matrix for a class 2 composite. Now, I want you all to guess on that ring, that sectional matrix ring, that blue thing that you see on the upper left of the tooth, what is the white stuff that you see on that ring? Let's see if any of you have that answer. Type it into the Q&A. It's easier for me to see. What is that stuff? Come on, let's see if any of you got it. Oh, wait, there we go. It's composite. Is it the composite from today? Is it no, it's not the composite from that day. That is some old, crappy A-word composite from some composite procedure that I did long ago that now is in the patient's mouth. That is gross. It's disgusting. And that is something that happens in my office. In my office that I think is like super nice and modern and cute. I got rings that look like that. Now, those of you who have Dentrix, you know what this is. These are your procedure buttons. And on our procedure, we have not updated our procedure buttons for probably 2 to 3 years. I do a ton of bone grafting. We do a procedure called Perio Protect, and we do it quite often. We do quite a few procedures quite often that we don't have buttons for. Why don't we have buttons for? Because I have never taken the time to just create the buttons. And so up until this point, whenever we do one of those procedures, a bone grafting procedures, Perio Protect, whatever, the assistant or the hygienist has to go into our list of procedures, find the right code, and then put it onto the patient's chart. It would be so much easier if they just had a button. But we never did that because we never took the time to do it. Here's a good one. Look at our wall hangings there. What's wrong with that picture? Those wall hangings are all like cockeyed and off. That's not going to kill our office, but it doesn't feel good when you go to your office and you see stuff like this. But even worse, here's a picture of Katie, my dental hygienist, with a really nice looking patient. Here's the problem. Katie stopped working at our office a year ago. We still have a framed photo of Katie in our employee lounge, even though Katie stopped working at our office a year ago. How do you think that makes our new dental hygienist feel when she walks in and she's like, oh, great, there's a picture of Katie, but there's no pictures of me in the darn office. Now, these are things that just cause small areas of frustration, and all of these things could very easily be fixed if we just had the time. And the last thing I want to talk about is your long-term vision for your perfect practice. Now, in this video, I'm actually trying to have good posture. I'm trying to have good posture in this video. But look at where my head is. I realize that there's a reason that so many dentists, when they're in their 60s and 70s, they look like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. That's because all of us are practicing in a way where our heads are tilted forward, except for those of you who have a scope. All of us are practicing this way. And I've realized now that I'm in my 40s, is that I should take advantage of this suspension of dental practice to really take a hard look at the number of hours that I work. Because part of my long-term vision for my life is to be upright and straight and have my head be over my shoulders instead of in front of them. So why didn't we fix these things before? We didn't fix them because they weren't that bad. I didn't really notice that we still had a picture of Katie. It didn't really, I don't know, it wasn't that big a deal. It wasn't like making our office go out of business. It wasn't making patients run away. It wasn't making OSHA come and do an audit. These things weren't that bad. And fixing this stuff just required time, and I didn't feel like devoting the time. When we are in our dental offices, we're pretty busy. We're busy doing patient care. We're busy doing certain administrative things. And when those things are done, a lot of us want to go home. And there's nothing wrong with that. We want to go home. We want to spend time with our family and with our kids. And so fixing that stuff required time. And we didn't really have the time to devote to fixing that stuff. And the fact is, when we had time, other things were more important. I'm not going to fix my Dentrix buttons if one of my autoclaves is acting up. That's just more important. And so other stuff always took precedence. But this is the one time, probably in our entire lives, where there is time enough, where our dental offices are truly empty. There's no patients inside. We can devote time towards these. Hang on. How many employees work in your office? How many days a week? Okay, Kim, we have 9 employees. So there's 11 of us. Me and my wife are both dentists. We have 9 employees, and we work a total of 4 days. We take Fridays off. And so my wife and I, we kind of juggle between me working 3.5 days and her working 2.5 days. Okay, let me talk to you about something called the Eisenhower matrix. Now, I don't know if this was actually Dwight Eisenhower or just some other smart guy whose last name was Eisenhower. But this Eisenhower matrix is basically every single thing that we do, that we voluntarily do, falls within one of these 4 categories. Not urgent, not important, urgent but not important, urgent and important, or urgent but important but not urgent. Now, things that fall into the lower right are things that we do, but we probably shouldn't do as much. That's like social media, watching Tiger King, etc. Not really urgent or important, but we still do them because they're kind of fun, okay? Then there's the things that are urgent, but not important to us. And those are things like if our autoclave is not working well, or there's something, we want to have an extra phone installed at the front desk. Those are things that are important. They need to be done, but they're not important to us. They're urgents that can be delegated to someone else. And then, of course, there's the urgent and important. And those are the things that we spend a lot of time doing. These are things that we have to do. They have to be done. We're the ones who have to do it. Those are the urgent and important things. But the problem is that the important but not urgent, those are things that a lot of humans will spend their entire lives ignoring. Ignoring the important but not urgent, because we're devoting all of our time to the left side of this matrix. We're not devoting enough time to the upper right. And the upper right, the reason that we don't devote enough time is because we don't feel like we have the time. So how do we determine what's important but not urgent? How do we determine what's important? Ask yourself, what are the things that I need to do in my life that will result in the highest likelihood of financial stability and peace? Ask yourself, what are the things that I need to do in my life on a regular basis as part of my routine that will result in consistent happiness, consistent absence of anxiety, minimize anxiety, and what gives you the maximum likelihood of doing the things that you believe are most valuable in life. Those are the things that are important. But unfortunately, when you look at this list, most of these things are not urgent. And you can go your entire life without spending any time thinking about any of these 5 bullet points. And this is a tragedy. And this is something that whatever the amount of time is between now and when you go full force back in your office, I think it's time to start thinking about what are the things that are important but not urgent. Because when you're 80 and you look back at your life and you determine what made you a success and what are the things that you regret, the things that you regret are often going to be, I never took the time to think about what was really important. And this is your opportunity during this quarantine. Remember that quote. Everything that we do, we should ask ourselves, is this the highest and best use of my time? So let's talk about financial simplicity and clarity. Okay. I get hired a lot. I go to a lot of different dental offices. Actually, I'm kind of curious if because I go to Michigan quite often. I go to a lot of dental offices. And a lot of times when I get hired to go to a dental office, I'm getting hired for one of three reasons. Reason number one is the team is not getting along with each other, and there's a lot of disharmony amongst the team. Reason number two is the dentist wants to get more new patients. And reason number three is the dentist wants to have more successful fee presentation, more successful case presentation. Those are the three reasons that I get hired, okay? And every single time I go to a dental office and I make my small talk with a dentist, I ask them, what is the number? What is the exact amount of money that you need to make in a day of work that will satisfy all of your expenses at home, all of your expenses at work, will allow you to eliminate all of your debt at your goal date, and allow you to build enough savings so that you are comfortable later in life, whether it's at the time when your kids go to college, whether it's the time that you retire, whatever the case is. I ask, how much do you need to collect on a daily basis? And one thing that I'm surprised by, and don't be ashamed if you don't know your number, because most dentists don't. They don't know their number. They're like, I don't know, like infinity. I mean, they just want to make more money. They just want to make more. And they never think about the clarity that is gained if they actually determine what's the exact amount. If you want to be debt-free when you're 45, what's the exact amount that you want to be paying per month towards all of your debt? If you want to have $5 million in the bank when you're 65, what is the exact amount that you need to put in that retirement account every month until you're 65? If you want to bring home a certain amount of money because you have grown accustomed to a lifestyle in which certain luxuries are purchased on a regular basis, how much money does it have to be? All of you should determine that number. Now, one thing that I'm going to provide, actually, Shauna, make sure I'll send you all of my handouts, okay, for this. I've done this presentation now 3 or 4 times during the quarantine, and so I have a really nice set of handouts, and I'll email it to the Michigan Dental Association, and so you'll have the opportunity to just download these, okay? These 2 budgets, one is a home budget, and the other one is a practice budget. These, my wife and I do on a regular basis every month. Even though we have a pretty standard, stable, every month type of income, we have found that the best way for us to gain clarity about how much we actually spend, I mean, she likes buying clothes. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. She likes buying clothes, but she wants to know, okay, when should I feel guilty? Or when should I be proud of myself because I haven't spent as much? She wants to know, and that clarity can't be gained unless you do a budget for a long period of time. And so what I would recommend all of you do is print out these handouts and then print out a bunch of your bank statements and credit card statements for the past, I don't know, 6 months and gain some of that clarity, okay? Who's this guy? Who is this guy? Let's see if any of you can answer that in the Q&A. Oh my God. Oh man. Look at you. I went to school with you, Doug. What's up, Doug? I was a U of M grad, just so you all know. Okay, you all know. I just want, for those of you who don't know who this is Dave Ramsey. And this was the dude who made my life so much better. I was on a drive from Columbus to Cleveland about 6 years ago. I was looking for a podcast. I started listening to this podcast because, I don't know, it was a popular podcast and it was about money. And for the full 2.5 hours that I was driving, this guy yelled at me and told me about how much of an idiot I was. I literally thought that he was talking to me in this podcast because he said, you people with a high income, if you're bogged down with debt, you're an idiot. And I was like, I'm not an idiot, you're a jerk. And he's like, no, you're an idiot. And I got home and I talked to my wife and I said, Nisha, I listened to this podcast and this guy's a jerk. I'm never going to listen to it again. And so what did she do? She started listening to the podcast and she was like, dude, I think this guy has a lot of good ideas. So one thing that I can tell you is that my practice, we have had no income for the past 6 weeks, no paycheck. But we feel no financial stress. And that's because Dave Ramsey challenged us to become intentional about our consumer spending, about making sure that we had a lot of money in an emergency fund so that if any catastrophe were to happen, we would be well taken care of. And actually, I'm so thankful for this dude. Now, some of you are like, well, thanks a lot, Gupta. I hadn't heard about this guy before and I'm struggling now. And that's okay. But I would recommend start listening to his podcast, start making changes in your life so that you have more money on the side to plan for a catastrophe, because I guarantee you there will be another catastrophe that happens. Hopefully it's not a pandemic, but there might be another catastrophe in terms of a stock market crash or some damage to your home, or you break your hand or something like that. And think about the way you spend money and making sure there's stuff on the side. The next thing I want to talk to you about is giving your team the opportunity to share. Giving your team the opportunity to share. Oh, this is really cool. On the Q&A, everybody's talking about how much Dave Ramsey changed their life. Give your team the opportunity to share the things that they find annoying, sources of conflict, sources of frustration, inefficient in your office. And I want to introduce you to this website called Poll Everywhere. What I found was there were certain members of my team that at our team meetings, they wouldn't speak up enough about what was frustrating them about our office because they didn't want to either hurt our feelings or they didn't want to throw anybody else under the bus. And so I just created an account on this website. It was for free. And then I asked the team, I said, okay, I want you to fill out this survey and write whatever you want because it's totally anonymous. So the question was, if you had a magic wand, what change would you make to the practice? What change do you think would have the greatest positive impact on the office? And then members of the team just started typing these things in. Get out earlier, more privacy for patients, the pano area is dark. I'm telling you, I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't know that these were things that were annoying my team. I think it would be awesome if everybody was here at lunch together at least once a week so we all could get to know each other better. There is a conflict resolution issue. This person who wrote clinical notes done was definitely calling me out because I don't finish my clinical notes immediately after I'm done with a patient. And that creates a tremendous amount of frustration for the team. Some person said that gossiping has become a problem in the office. And this is me. I get paid to go to other offices and teach them how to become better offices. And here in my own office, there was gossiping. There was people that were lying and people that were frustrated about that. Things that weren't working well, like our intraoral camera. I didn't know that these were problems. But one thing I knew was that I was going to take these 6 weeks of closed office time to tackle everything that was frustrating about our office for our team. So what we decided to do after we did that poll and people were able to share what they found frustrating or inefficient about the office, we scheduled one-on-ones. Now, for those of you who don't pay for a Zoom account, Zoom gives you 40-minute meetings for free. Or if you don't feel like being on Zoom, you can just do FaceTime. And you just FaceTime somebody in your, one person individually in your office. And at this one-on-one, you bring up certain things. You say, a lot of people have expressed frustration about the doctors not finishing their chart before. Is there anything you want to share? Or some people kind of feel like there's a clique forming between these people and these people. How do you feel about that, right? And then we give the team opportunities to give specific ways to make the office better. And for those of you who are listening right now, who are like, I don't know, is that really that beneficial? I'm going to tell you right now that this has been probably the most valuable thing that I've done in the 6 weeks that I've been off, is scheduling these one-on-ones and giving each person a one-on. Now, it's not one-on-one because my wife and I both own the practice. So it's me and her with one of them on Zoom. But we've gotten so many incredible ideas, some of which are easy to implement to make our office better. So what we did from that poll and from that one-on-one is we created a list with these specific solutions in mind. Solutions about clutter, about efficiency in terms of our operation, in terms of growthiness, about creating a perfect patient experience, about team building. And then, of course, my wife and I, we decided that we are going to create a surprise for the, Catherine, you asked, do you pay the staff for the one-on-ones? Yes, we are. We are paying our team for when we have entire team meetings on Zoom and when we're doing our one-on-ones, but our one-on-ones are only 30 minutes, okay? So what are some examples? Well, what we realized, our mentality with our computer systems was always putting out fires, putting out fire, putting out fire, putting out fire. Oh, this computer's not work. This intraoral camera's not working. Oh, this computer's running slow. Let me call our IT web people and say, hey, yo, this computer's giving us problems. Fix it. And then they fixed it and then they moved on. But finally, we have the opportunity to say, okay, web and IT people, go into our office and do a total diagnostic on all of our computers and tell us what we need to upgrade. What doesn't have enough memory, what has not a powerful enough processor. I mean, I think our office has something like 16 computers in it, and some of them are older and some of them are newer. And this was a great opportunity for us to learn what we need to do in order for our computer system to be more efficient. We decided to plan when it's safe for all of us to get together. We're all going to go visit a winery together. And then 2 months later, we're going to have a picnic in which all of our team members are going to bring their families. Because one thing that was brought up at our one-on-ones was that team members felt like their families don't know us well enough. Their families just hear about us when they're, over dinner or something like that. What we decided to do is organize our office forms. In terms of dental photography, we installed a disc reader onto every computer. And then we did this crazy amount of deep cleaning and restocking all of our operatories. One assistant in particular was cited a lot in our one-on-ones, where people said, this assistant, I love her, she's great, she's wonderful, but she's actually the source of a lot of my frustration with sterilization, because I noticed that our cassettes kind of get stacked up and she's oftentimes in the lab doing something on the computer, and that pisses me off. And so it was up to our leadership to now approach this assistant and be like, listen, people aren't exactly mad at you. It's not like people are angry, but I know that this can blow up if people continue to see you in the lab when cassettes are stacking up. So what I want you to do from now on is, if you feel that urge to go to the lab, I want you to go into the sterilization area first and make sure that the cassettes are taken care of, okay? And she handled that very well. So what our surprise was going to be for the office is, during this time, we added a bunch of brighter bulbs and we repainted it, because we really like the idea of a reborn office. And so our office is truly going to be a new office when our assistants and hygienists and front desk team start showing back up. Now, in our office, we are seeing a lot of emergencies. We see emergencies every Tuesday, but it's just me and my dental assistant. It's just me and her, and my wife are the only ones who know the secret. We're the only ones who know the surprise. And I think it's going to be really fun for our team to see something new. What I challenge you all, as long as it's within your budget, is think of a way to surprise your team. Make it so that their first day they come back, they're like, whoa, cool. And if you can't afford painting the office, maybe print out some really nice, large 11 by 14 photos and put them in some nice frames, and put up a new wall hangings or put up some new quotes. That's a very affordable upgrade, but it's going to give your team the opportunity to be like, oh, this is cool. Oh, they've been hard at work while we've been gone, okay? Now, some examples that I want to share with you of certain things that were inefficient or sources of frustration or sources of imperfection that we have run into in the past and fixed in the past are the downtime checklist and the extraordinary customer service. Let me give you an example. So look at the three of them right now. They're all working hard with their downtime. Look at them there. We're on the phone and typing stuff on the computer. See, this is what we all wish was happening when we have downtime. But what actually happens is, when your team has downtime, they can be doing one of several things. They can go into the lab and pack up some lab boxes or open up some cases. They can do stocking. They can look in their operatory and see what things need to be restocked. They can go into sterilization and take care of some cassettes. They can walk up and down the hallway to check to see if anyone's behind. They can just do some overall tidying up. Maybe there's just this particular place in your office that's gross and kind of dingy, and they just want to take the opportunity to tidy it up. Or they go to the back where all the UPS and FedEx boxes have been dropped off and they need to open them and put them into the storage cabinets and stuff. They can walk up and down the halls and see if anybody needs help charting. Or one thing that I found is so frustrating, I'm in my 40s, so I'm not part of the phone generation. What I mean by that is that I got my first smartphone when I was later in life, when I was in like my mid 30s or something like that, or early 30s. And what I find is the phone is like the rudest thing in the world. Like I am of the generation that believes that when I'm talking to somebody one-on-one and they pull out their phone and start looking at it, that they're rude, that that's just a rude thing to do. But I realize that a lot of the people that work at my office that are in their 20s, they have created a lifestyle for themselves where looking at that phone is common practice. So we made a rule in our office. We said, don't look at your phones. You're going to get in trouble if you look at your phones. Don't look at your phones. You can only do phone stuff at lunch and after you're done with work. But then we made I don't know if it's a mistake, but our practice has an Instagram page and a Facebook page, and we have a YouTube channel. And so a lot of times the staff is doing something that they think is important by doing like social media stuff for the practice. Now, here's the problem with all of these things. You have hygienists over here. Can you all see me right now, or can you just see my screen? Can you see me? Here, just answer in the Q&A thing right now. Okay. Thanks. Okay, because I was about to like act things out with like little finger puppets here, but since you can't see me, I'm not going to do it. Okay, here's person number one. This is hygienist, and the hygienist is represented by my left hand. And the hygienist is running behind. And she's like, man, I am running behind and I'm stressed out. And I know my next patient is here. And I know my next patient needs bite wings. Oh, this sucks. I'm running behind. I wish somebody would just seat my next patient and take some bite wings. Okay. Now you have dental assistant over here. And dental assistant is like, oh, sweet. Our patient no-showed. This is awesome. I'm going to go into the lab and clean up because it's really messy in there. So our dental assistant goes into the lab and she cleans up. Then this hygienist who's already stressed out and frazzled, she looks and sees that there's a room that's clean and empty, and that assistant could have seated her patient and taken those bite wings. And so the hygienist looks at the assistant and goes, you're a big jerk, you poopy face. And the assistant is like, what do you mean? How dare you call me a jerk? And the hygienist is like, no, you are a jerk because I was running behind and I really could have used your help, but you were off in the lab like smoking cigarettes and reading newspaper or whatever you were doing. And the assistant's like, no, I wasn't. I was doing something important. Do you see all that mess that's over there and all those UPS boxes? I cleaned all of those up. So I was doing something important. And then they get into a fight and it's like punches are thrown and stuff, hair is pulled, and I get in the middle of it and broke. I'm just kidding. They don't get into a true fist fight, but I think most of you can agree that a conflict like that has probably happened in your office. So what did we do? We created the downtime checklist, okay? And it's this simple. When a person in our office has downtime, including the doctor, if I have a patient that no-shows, I become free and my assistant becomes free for a certain amount of time. The very first thing that we have to do, the number one priority, is we have to walk up and down the hallway and ask if anybody needs help. Hey, we have a couple extra minutes. Our patient's late, or our patient no-showed, or we got done early, or our patient canceled, whatever it is. We have a couple minutes. Do any of you need help? Now, of course, in our heads, we're like, please say no, please say no, please say no, please say no. And then everybody says no, and we're like, yes. So then the next step is we have to go into the sterilization area. This is in my office. Your priority checklist could be different. But in my office, we go into sterilization. And in sterilization, we check to see if cassettes are stacked up in each other, if it's messy in there. And the next thing we have to do is make sure that the cassettes get all thrown in the autoclave. Then we have to walk up and down that hall and see if there's any ops that are dirty and need to be turned over. Now, these are steps 1, 2, and 3 in my office. Steps 4, 5, 6, and 7 don't matter. Even though on your screen right here, you see them prioritized, they don't have to be prioritized, okay? Steps 4, 5, 6, and 7, I don't care if a person makes giveaway bags next or does lab work next or checks the inventory, who cares? But by having steps 1, 2, and 3 very clearly outlined and prioritized in our office, what we have done is eliminated so much source of frustration. What I challenge all of you who are listening is to create that downtime checklist. If you want to copy mine, cool. If you want to create your own, that might be better too, because your priorities might be different from mine, okay? Next, extraordinary customer service, okay? What I have realized is that we, all of us have had the opportunity to, all of us have had an opportunity to read things like dental economics and dental town and stuff like that. And we get these super awesome ideas. Like one article I read not long ago was that there's a dentist who, after they're done with treatment, they provide the patient with a warm, wet towel. And then the patient takes the warm, wet towel and they wipe their face, and people seem to really enjoy that. And I read that article a year ago. And I remember I was so taken by that article that I bought this stupid towel warmer. I have a towel warming oven in my office. But for the past year, we have not offered a warm towel to even one patient. Okay? And why haven't we? It's because we never had the time to properly implement this particular example of extraordinary customer service. So think about what are the things that you can do to make your office extraordinary. Fresh flowers in the reception area, charging stations in the reception area. When it's raining, especially with elderly patients, walking those patients out to their car. When it's snowing outside, dentists, you go out there. I've noticed when it snows outside, I'm the first one done with my day. And my assistants still have to make a temp. They still have to clean the operatory. The hygienists are still working. They have to clean their ops. Everybody's busy except for me, usually at the end. And so what I've made it as a rule in my office is when it's snowing outside and I'm done first, I go up and down the hall and I say, hey, does anybody want me to take their keys and start their car? And a lot of people say no, because they're just too weirded out by their dentist getting in their car. Totally get it. But then what I do is I have a really nice, high quality snow brush and scraper. And I go through and I just go into all the cars in our parking lot and I just scrape. And I get a little sweat on, and it's kind of a cool feeling, but it's tremendous customer service. That's something that creates loyalty. Assigning a spy to your office. That is when you have really expensive treatment, let's say $10,000 or more. What we do is we assign a spy to that patient who just committed to really expensive dental treatment. And that spy then has to learn what the patient's favorite restaurant is, or what they do for a hobby, or stuff that the patient really values. And the spy then spends about 1% of the patient's total treatment and buys them a gift card to, say, Outback Steakhouse, if that's what the patient loves, or Home Depot, if that's what the patient loves. And then at the end of their treatment, we have this cute little box that has a bow in it, and it has a personal letter written by us about how awesome we think this patient is, and we give them this box with this gift card. These things, all of these things can be properly implemented. The reason that we don't implement these things is that the reason we don't implement these things is because for most of us, we don't have the time to create the system. But now we do. Now we do. Take some of the ideas. Now, in your notes that I'm going to be emailing, there's an entire page full of examples of extraordinary customer service. Pick one or two that you really, really resonate with and figure out what are the systems that need to be created in order for your office to do these things long term. John, I see your question, and it's a lot about safety and the post-COVID protocol. Let me talk about that at the end of my presentation, okay? Because actually we have a lot of ideas, and I want to make sure that I share those things with you, okay? So Then regular engagement. So the rule for us is that once every 2 weeks, we schedule a 1 hour a 1 hour Zoom team meeting with our team. And at that 1 hour meeting, we talk about things like what the PPE changes are going to be, what the action plans are, how we're going to make things different, how certain systems are going to get knocked on their head. One thing that I shared with my team this morning was that my wife and I, we both are concerned about the long-term health of our back and our neck. And so Mondays used to be our late day. We used to work until 6 p.m. on Mondays, and I always hated Mondays. And so what we're going to do when we go back to the office is our Mondays, our offices are going to change, our hours are going to change. There's no better opportunity than now. Is that going to upset a few patients? It probably is. But working until 6 doesn't align with my long-term vision for my future. And so I'm taking this opportunity now to create that change. Okay. Jessica, what was assigning the spy? Jessica, don't worry. I'm going to send you an email that's probably going to make everything clear. And if you're not clear about anything, all you got to do is shoot me an email. Okay. So, oh, what did I do? Hang on. This is just notes that came from our last team meeting. And this is just, Nisha and I, we were sitting there with the entire team and we said, okay, you guys gave us really good advice about big things that we can change to make the office happier and better and more efficient. Give us some small things. Give us some small things that we can start doing right away. And look at some of these lists. I mean, somebody's requesting Post-it note stations. I mean, come on. Can you believe that? Because we didn't know that a person wanted Post-it note stations before, that person was they probably were frustrated with their lack of Post-it notes for the past however many years. And because they never had the opportunity to say, can I have a couple Post-it note stations? Or what about this one? Mirror hooks in each room. I mean, come on, mirror hooks. We could probably spend like $4 and put mirror hooks in every room. These aren't huge investments, but these are ways in which you can make sure that your office knows that you're listening to them. And if you add all of these up, they are going to create a happier, better, more efficient office for you. Darn, I'm kind of running short on time. The reason that I put this picture up is because we had noticed that a lot of people were suggesting that our horizontal counter space was too full in certain places. Now, if you notice on this counter, we have a Sonicare, we have a water pick, we have brochures, we have what looks like a notebook, and then we have a mirror. And then what is that, a calculator or something like that? Those are all sitting there. And some people in our office were like, I think it would be so much more cool if these were all just clean and modern and sleek, and it would be cleaner and it would be safer. But a couple of our hygienists, they said, God, I really don't want to do that. I love showing people some of these water picks and stuff like that. I love having these at my disposal. And so what we decided to do was, instead of making our team meeting contentious, we said, let's create a committee about clutter and PPE so that the people who actually have strong feelings about this can actually voice their opinions, as opposed to our entire team. Let me read some of these questions real quick. You quote a writer, so do you wait until the next pandemic to devote time to important but not urgent in the URQ of the Eisenhower? I'm not sure exactly what your question is. Here, let me see. Honey, CD recommends postpone elective procedures. Okay, let me tell you all about our COVID thing, because I think that this is really important. I'm going to go over. Shauna, do you mind unmuting yourself and just letting me know if I'm allowed to go over 1 hour?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm going to go over 1 hour because I do want to share with you our post-COVID plan. But one thing that I got to tell you is that if you follow all the advice that I just laid out here, what you're going to have is Hillary is going to come up to you and be like, I really think we should start doing this. Wouldn't this be great? And Hillary's going to put the monkey on your back. And then Mindy is going to be like, oh my gosh, Dr. Gupta, I have a great idea. Let's start doing this. and then more monkeys are going to go on your back. Take the monkeys off your back and put the monkeys back onto the backs of the people who came up with the ideas. Give autonomy to your team. When they come up with an idea, allow them to answer these questions. How are you going to accomplish this? Who's going to take charge? What amount of time do you need? What other resources do you need? Whose help will you need to enlist? And how will this new thing affect our team? And then I want you to sell it to the team. Now, let me tell you why this is important. Number one is dentists, the boss. When we have too many monkeys on our back, we do one of two things. We ignore one of those monkeys, or we do a super crappy job with one of those monkeys. And neither of those things are good. So when we have too many monkeys on our back, we're not going to always fulfill those monkeys the way we should. The second thing is the person who came up with the idea is the person who has the most passion for that idea. If they have that passion and then they take the monkey and put it on your shoulders, and then you do your own crappy version of their vision, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to be sad because they're like, dude, I was so excited about that idea. And then Dr. Gupta either ignored it or did a super crappy job with it. And now I feel discouraged. Don't allow that to happen. Give your team the autonomy to make the office better. They can do it, okay? Give autonomy to your team, delegate. Make them be the ones, the champions of some of this in-office improvement. Now, I want to just share this story before I get to questions. 2 years ago, my family and we went to India, and we went way up into the Himalayas where there was just extremely simple lives. No toilets, no Wi-Fi, we stayed in these places called ashrams, there was no central heating, and we were in the middle of the Himalayas in winter. It was like very simple. We would spend like 15 hours in these crappy buses, ultra simple. And all 4 of us agreed at the end of our trip that it was awesome and that we loved it. And that we want to take some of that simplicity and some of that wonderful feeling that we had, and we want to make our lives more simple and more meaningful and more together. And then when we flew back to America and we got our toilets back and our Wi-Fi back and our beds and our central air, we went right back to business as usual. Ultra complicated, ultra stressed, anxiety. We started to ignore our vision. And I think that's a tragedy. And that's something that I'm very disappointed by. And what I want to challenge you all to do is don't do what we did when we went to India. Don't just see this COVID time as a memory. See this COVID time as your opportunity to make a lasting change in your life. Because see, there are things that are positive. We've noticed that our lives are slowed down. We can't spend as much money, but we can spend more time with our family. We're realizing that there's lots of things in life that we just can't control. And we're starting to learn that there were things about our pre-COVID lives that really weren't serving us, and that we can take the steps to change them. And we're realizing that some stuff that really mattered before doesn't really that matter. There are positives to this COVID thing, but the only way that you can realize those positives is to be honest about your particular buckets. All of us, our lives is just a room full of buckets. And one bucket represents money, and one bucket represents sleep, and another one represents energy. Another one represents our relationship to our kids, our relationship to our spouse, our relationship to our aging parents, our relationship to our brothers and sisters. One bucket represents happiness. And we have buckets upon buckets that make up the overall quality, the overall success of our lives. The problem is that every single one of these buckets has a hole. Every single one of these buckets has a hole in it. And whenever we make intentional actions to make our bucket, to fill our buckets, to make our lives better in terms of one of these categories, we're filling that bucket up. But the stupid bucket has a hole at the bottom and it's leaking. And so use this time to determine what are the buckets in your life that you truly value. And know that those buckets have holes in them. And so it's not that you should just throw a bunch of stuff in one of these buckets every so often. No, you should change the routine of your life so you are continually filling that bucket, so that when you're in your 80s and you're looking back at your life, you can say, dude, I was really successful. Okay, real quick, I just want to share with all of you, in a year, it's not June 17th through 20th of this year, in June 17th through 20th of 2021, I'll be hosting my first ever Abundance, Longevity, and Happiness retreat. It's for doctors and their spouses and their teams. And it's going to be obviously a lot about office profitability, etc. But it's going to be a lot about just personal balance and happiness. I've secured a stand-up comedian. I've secured a yoga instructor, a foam rolling instructor. I've made sure that the meals that we provide are going to be very real, colorful, balanced, delicious meals. For those of you who are interested in potentially taking your team, you can learn a little bit more about it by going to our website. Those of you who want to connect with me, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and there's our website again. And of course, if you just want to shoot me an email, there's my email address.